Good evening, everyone. I hope everybody started off their week well and are getting acclimated to yet a start of another week. It's been a rather busy day and one that I am glad to, I guess you could say, be done with. But tonight we have an incredible guest. Her name is Terah, and hi to you as well. I am excited to introduce Terah. She's going to be coming on here in a second. She's going to push the joining icon on the right bottom. And we're going to talk about her story. She has a very unique story, and one that is very trauma-filled, and one that I think will shock you to the depths of which religion will go to maintain a stronghold on someone's life and control and be very misogynistic at the same time. And so I'm excited about getting to talk to her and having her join us. So that being said, allow me to remind you that my name is Brad. In case you didn't know, I am a life coach. I help people previously going through deconstruction, are going through deconstruction, have walked through it and are looking to set new goals in their life, as well as struggling with anxiety or depression or anything like that. So I am here to help people take back and take back their life, I guess you could say. And so I am excited to work with multiple different people, and it has been fun. So that being the case, she's just said, hey, I would like to join. So that's great, because it's always awkward talking at the very beginning stages of any live, it feels like. Hey, how you doing, Terah?
I'm so sorry. Apparently I had to update my Instagram app.
Great timing, right?
Right, always perfect timing.
It's good to see you tonight. How's your day been?
Good to see you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I've been waiting for this and been very excited about it. I love what you are saying on your page. I love what you stand for, and I can't wait to hear a lot more of your story. After our first conversation, I was like, wow, there's a lot of depth and a lot of challenges that you have overcome your life to this point. And so I just wanted to make sure everyone else heard about your courage and what you've been through.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I do feel like I've lived several lifetimes by this point.
I bet. Listen, why don't you just take a moment and just kind of introduce yourself to all those listening and all those that will listen when we replay it.
Awesome. Okay, hi. My name is Terah. I have an Instagram account called Recover from Religion. And I was raised in a devout Mormon family. I'm the oldest of 4 girls. We were all baptized into the Mormon Church, aka the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I was in the Mormon Church and a devout practicing member until I was 36. Went to BYU, was married in the temple, and had a long journey out. Which included a lot of, bumps along the way, but here I am, and I'm doing great. So there is hope. You can get to the other side.
There is hope, and I hopefully people will find that in our conversation tonight as well. So you said, obviously, you grew up Mormon. Give us a little bit about your religious upbringing, like some more details of how you were basically indoctrinated into the Mormon Church.
Well, I have to say, first of all, that my parents are amazing, and I could not have asked for a better family. So, I want to give them a lot of credit. They have 4 beautiful daughters that are all doing well, so they did a lot of things right. And I would say I had a pretty happy childhood up to the age of about 12, and that's when the church indoctrination really started to get heavy. So starting at age 11 is when you start, right before my 12th birthday is when I had my first worthiness interview with the bishop, where he gets to put you in a closed room and ask you anything he wants. I definitely had some questions that were completely inappropriate for a child to be asked. It was very uncomfortable situation when you're in a room with a leader you are taught is a spiritual leader, is talking, on your behalf to God. And everyone in the group is giving that person deference, and you're just a kid. So
let me interrupt you a quick second. What is the purpose of you at age 12 going into a room with the bishop? Like, why is that? Is that a common practice within the Mormon culture or religion?
Thank you so much. You're going to have to stop me because I was raised in this religion. I forget like what people outside know and what they don't.
Right.
And so
Good.
please ask clarification anytime. We have our own language,
Yeah.
Yes, it was typical. Everyone who wants to go to the temple, which is a special Mormon house of worship that is restricted only to certain members, you have to have what's called a recommend in order to get into this building. And you can't go until you're at least 12 years old. When you're 12 years old, you can start meeting with the bishop once a year. He will ask you questions to deem if you're worthy or not to enter the Lord's house. Those questions would include if you are following the word of wisdom, which would be abstaining from coffee, tea, alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, no sex outside of marriage, no affiliating with anyone who would be contrary to the Mormon Church's teachings, a firm testimony in the church and the original prophet, who was Joseph Smith. And so if you met, and then you would have to be attending all your meetings, and just kind of, being a good Mormon. If you were doing all those things, then you would get a recommend from the bishop saying that you could enter the temple. When you're 12, you are restricted until you are usually 18, 19, getting married, going on a mission. You're only allowed to do baptisms for the dead in the temple. That's the only thing that we were allowed to do, but I would go do baptisms for the dead as 12-year-old. So yeah, those interviews were yearly.
Okay.
Unless you felt the need to confess something, in which case they could happen anytime, because you are taught to go to the bishop and confess all of your, if it's a sin, and then he will decide what your consequences will be at that point.
Okay, so you're at your age 12, you're sitting in front of the bishop in a closed room.
Yes.
If you don't mind, give us some examples of the questions you'd be asked.
I want to be careful not to use any words that's going to get us, kicked off of Instagram. So mind you that I'm using cloaked language here.
Sure.
I was asked if I had, remind you I'm 11.
Yeah.
I was asked, not in these terms, in different words, if I had ever pleasured myself.
Okay.
The word that was used, I was not familiar with at all. I had never heard it. And so the bishop had to explain to me what that word meant.
Okay.
Very uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah, I bet.
For an 11-year-old to be having with a, 45-year-old man that I didn't really know. So questions like that. And then, are you, following the word of wisdom? Are you paying your tithing? That's another one. You got to be paying your tithing.
You're 11.
You still have to pay tithing.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, you have to start paying tithing. I mean, you start paying tithing from the time you're a toddler. I remember, they teach you, they give you 10 pennies and you give one back because that belongs to God. So.
Okay. All right.
10% all the time.
That's right. Okay. All right. And so you've been asked if you have done anything to yourself or pleasured yourself. You've been asked if you're tithing. What else do you ask an 11-year-old in that situation? I mean, that's crazy.
Right. Yeah, you're also going to ask them if they have a true testimony of Joseph Smith, which I don't know that you can have a testimony of anything at age 11.
Yeah.
But that is, that you uphold the church and all its teachings, and you're a good member, and you're not going to affiliate with anyone outside the, that's contrary to the church. Yeah, questions like that.
Wow.
There's standard questions that everyone gets asked, but the bishop has complete license to veer off track whenever or he thinks he should or wants to get further clear.
Are completely fine with this.
Yeah, and that's a really difficult thing to come to terms with because it was so normalized in the culture in which I was raised. I have to tell you, I don't even think I realized that how absolutely predatory and just dangerous it is to put children in that kind of situation because it can be used at any point as a a tool of manipulation. Of course, not to mention the fact that these bishops have no training. They haven't gone to seminary. They haven't been trained. They haven't gone to some kind of boot camp where you learn to be a bishop. The literally only authority they have is somebody above them in the church put hands on their head, said, God has called you to be the bishop, and that's done.
Okay, so, the Chad Force says, so insane. Tammy Elizabeth is like, that's so much pressure. Oh my God. That's dumbfounding to me. That is so unsupervised within it.
And I have to say, I mean, jumping forward a little bit, we'll come back to this, I'm sure, but one of the major reasons I left was my daughter was getting to that age where she was about to start having those interviews. And I was like, over my dead body, will anyone be talking to my daughter, asking her those kinds of questions, invading her?
I mean, yeah, that would be enough to make me walk out. I mean, asking my daughter at 11 if she's pleasured herself or, stuff like that, I would be like, get the hell out of here. I want to punch the guy in the face.
And I have to say, I mean, I've had a lot of conversations. That was definitely not an anomaly. I mean, that happened all the time, and much, much worse. I got off easy. I really got lucky because there have been, countless thousands of people abused in that situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, because it's unsupervised. So, Goddess of Tetris, by the way, welcome, has said, so courageous of you, Terah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay, so let's move on. Okay, we're already dumbfounded by this, right? So you move on, and you're in your high school years, about to go to college, or you go to college. What's happening in your life at that point within this religion, within Mormon?
Really, the indoctrination really gets crazy because that's when you're required to go to seminary. If you are, definitely no background checks. I'm seeing this chat. Yeah, no. Definitely. And I have to say that I know firsthand of people that were called to positions of power in my own ward when I was attending that were convicted sex offenders.
Oh.
With children.
Wow. Okay.
There's that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
So anyway, I started attending seminary. If you're lucky and you live in Utah or somewhere, you might get like an hour release from school and be able to attend the seminary building across the street. A lot of times the church will put them there for, ease of access. But I grew up in Washington in a rural area. There weren't a lot of Mormons there, so I had to go to early morning seminary. So there was someone in the ward ward is like a, it's kind of, the Mormon church is almost like school districts. So if you imagine like each geographical area is sort of circled and bound, by a geographical boundary, you have to attend church with the people right around you. Yeah. That's man. And so all these little groups are grouped together in a bigger group called the stake. So it's very organized. So wards are the individual groups that meet. Stake is a larger collective group.
Okay.
So in my ward, we didn't have we didn't have seminary, release time seminary. So we had early morning seminary. So my schedule was, I would get up at 4:30. I'd get ready, get my, pack my lunch, do all this full day. I'd leave my house at 5:15 because it was a rural area. We had to carpool. So one of the parents would pick all the kids up. We'd drive half an hour to the seminary teacher's house. We would listen to an hour lesson. Then we would get on the school bus and we would go to school and be there by 7:15 to start school. And I did that every day. I was getting ulcers. My hair was turning white. The amount of stress that puts on a child when you were just literally not, I was so sleep deprived all the time.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you're required to attend, your teenage meetings. So we had young women's meetings. We had combined activities where it was all the boys and girls. We had family activities. We had Saturday activities. We had temple trips. I mean, I think I was spending at least 20 hours a week in church-related activities by the time I hit high school. And I really didn't like it. I mean, I really, really did not care for seminary. I didn't have a good experience. I was exhausted. I fell asleep constantly, and then I fell asleep all day in class, even though it was so frustrating to be a good student and not be able to stay awake. So anyway, so 4 years of that. And really, I think the main message I got at that time was your number one goal as a Mormon woman is to get married in the temple to a worthy return missionary Mormon man, because that is the only way Mormons believe you can get to the highest level of heaven. And so that was my only ticket in.
Okay.
For eternity.
That's the only thing you can do because you are female or a woman.
Yes. Now, technically, a man would need to be married as well, but he could be married as many times as he wanted.
Of course, right?
Yeah, it's a little easier, so not quite as much pressure. That's a whole other story. Anyway, so yeah, that was my main concern. There was definitely a lot of shame, sexual shame. As I was growing up, I remember clearly having a lesson when it was just the teenage girls all together, where it was an object lesson. Gotta love those object lessons. So the teacher had a rose petal.
Oh no.
And yeah. You know where this is.
Go on. Yeah, go on.
So she has this rose petal, beautiful, perfect rose petal, right? And look at the beautiful rose petal, smell the beautiful rose petal. It's so perfect. Look at this perfect thing God has made. And so she hands it to the first girl that's sitting in the first row and touch the flower, smell the petal, pass it to the girl next to you, right? And so we're supposed to pass it along till it gets to the end of 30 people or however many people are sitting in the room. And she holds up this teeny tiny shriveled little bedraggled, rose petal and says, "This is your chastity. If you let yourself get passed around, you were basically worth nothing. You are nothing but a worthless, bedraggled little rose petal when you used to be beautiful and perfect."
Oh my. Oh my. Okay. All right. And how old were you when that took place?
Well, it starts at 12 and it goes till 18-ish.
Crap. Okay.
Yeah.
You're seeing the comments that are flowing in now. By the way, thank you for everybody's commenting about how much they're disturbed in this, but I kind of chuckle in not a funny way, but Jay Gregory Blair said, also the only way to talk men into missions.
So, yeah, the girls get all the chastity talk and the boys get all the mission mission pressure. Yeah, that's what happens. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I was a very, very good Mormon. I followed all of the rules. But my hardest thing was boys. I like boys. So, there were a couple times I had to go talk to the bishop. I love the invasive questioning and the terms they use, which are just hilarious because they're terms we would never use in real life. Like when they're talking from the pulpit, it's always like, "Were you petting? Were you necking?"
Heavy petting.
Yeah.
All those terminologies. Yeah.
Of course, they can absolutely get as graphic and detailed as they want, and they do. So
okay, because it's their business. Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Well, they have to decide how much punishment you need.
Wow. Yeah, the comments are rolling in. Obviously, this is very familiar with people. I believe, I'm sorry if I butcher any names, Les Paul, 1981, was baptized at 14, and for reasons I don't recall, the ward bishop did the pre-baptism interview.
Yep.
I recall being asked about self-pleasuring. My thought was, how is this anyone of your business, of your own business? So, I mean, I'm just dumbfounded by how normal this is.
Well, that's exactly the problem. I mean, how blurred the boundaries were. There were no boundaries. The church dictated my sexuality in every possible way, which is just terrifying, really, because they have very little educational background from which to do so. So.
Wow. Okay. So all right. Moving on. I know that you obviously attended college. Tell me, where did you go to college?
So, being the good Mormon girl I attended BYU like I'm supposed to. If you don't go to BYU, or at least go to a Utah school, your chances of finding that returned missionary husband to marry you in the temple are pretty slim. So I went to BYU, Idaho, which at the time was called Rick's College. It was only a junior college at the time because I'm old. It is now called BYU, Idaho, and it is now a four-year college. But at the time, it was a junior college.
Okay. All right. And the example of Scotch tape came up. I'm sorry, I do not know how to say that. Hadassa. I'm so sorry. I'm challenged when it comes to names. But I noticed, obviously you went to BYU. How long were you at BYU?
I was at BYU for off and on for 2 years. I had some interruptions in the middle.
Okay.
I was at BYU for 2 terms before I got expelled. And then I reapplied and went back for another 2 terms.
Okay.
So I was 2 terms at BYU, Idaho, and then 2 terms at BYU in Utah.
Were you beginning to deconstruct at this point, at any point, or were you not quite there yet?
I struggled from the time I was really young. I think from like maybe age 8. The very first time I heard of polygamy, or they might call it the new and everlasting covenant, or celestial marriage. There's a lot of terms for it. But basically the idea that in the highest level of heaven, every man will have his own planet. That planet will need to be populated with souls, which necessitates many, many spirit wives in order to birth all the spirit babies that will inhabit the planet that will be his.
So the man gets to have multiple women.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And eternally, so your reward as a woman is to go there and be pregnant continually.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Seems like a raw deal.
I remember being about 8, hearing about this in primary. And now, mind you, I mean, this is very hush-hush. This is not something they really teach you when you're young. They wait till you're very indoctrinated before this kind of pops up in surprise 20 years later.
Yeah.
But which was what happened with me. But I guess I heard some rumors about the pioneers practicing it when they crossed the plains. And we were always told that it was a necessity because all the men were dying and there weren't enough men to go around. So they just married the women as a kindness, because you can't take care of a widow unless you marry her, right? It makes no sense.
Right.
I mean, but that's the line I was fed anyway. I'm sure growing up in different places, people heard different things. That's what I heard. But I just remember it kicking me in the gut. I felt nauseated the very first time I ever heard of that concept, because it just felt so inherently unfair. And, I was a very sheltered little girl that grew up watching, Disney movies. And I was thinking, when I heard about, having to share my husband for eternity, I don't remember that part. I don't remember part of Cinderella where she has to share her prince with her two evil stepsisters. I don't remember that part.
Apparently, you missed that part because that's a big part of the
Luckily, I was indoctrinated with Disney movies, I think, before I was indoctrinated with Mormon theology. So I think that stuck more. I struggled. I struggled the whole time. I struggled because I'm a reasonable, rational person. I had a lot of questions, and questions are not encouraged in the church. And I was always told I'd understand things when I was older. They would, things are revealed to you line upon line, precept on precept. And I believed them. I believed them. I believed my parents when they said, this is the one true way, because they loved me. Why would they lead me astray?
Exactly. You're a child. You trust your parents, right?
Absolutely. And they were wonderful parents. I had no reason not to trust them.
Yeah.
They've never shown me to be faulty in any other way, which is confusing. So, it was a very confusing time. And eventually you just learn to shut your mouth because it doesn't get you anywhere. It frustrates other people when you ask questions. You don't get the answers you want. So I just learned to be quiet. A lot of Mormons would call that shelving things.
Okay.
Right? You just put an item on the shelf. This doesn't make sense to me. I'll think about it later. This doesn't make sense to me. I'll think about it later. And eventually the shelf gets so heavy, it collapses, and you just can't sustain that cognitive dissonance anymore. And that's eventually what happened to me. It was a very long, very slow process because we're also taught that that's the only way to be together with our family for eternity.
Right.
Is to remain in the Mormon church, that we're sealed together. That's one of their big selling points. They get to seal souls together for time and all eternity. So I believed I was separating myself from my family. When I'm on something.
So let's put this in a perspective for everybody that's just kind of joined us as well as what we're hearing here. Grew up in the Mormon church, trusted your parents, had very uncomfortable one-on-one meetings with the bishop that was allowed to ask you anything, even at the age of 11, whether it was, hey, are you touching yourself? Are you doing this, doing that? Unsupervised.
Yeah.
You are raised in this, so you walk this journey throughout high school as well, and you basically almost kill yourself getting up in the mornings and your hair is turning white and you're exhausted because of how many hours you have to be in the church, per se. You go to BYU, all right, and in BYU you get kicked out once, but reapply, right?
Yes.
So you reapply. Talk to me a little. There's a man that comes into your life. For a little bit of that story. Oh, and by the way, in case anybody realized or think I forgot, I have not forgotten about the fact that she's supposed to be pregnant for all eternity and populate, what is it, an Earth-type atmosphere or a planet?
Well, each exalted man in the celestial kingdom, if they get to the highest level, would be gifted their own planet to be the god. They will be the god of their own.
So the man is gifted not only in it, but wife and other women.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So here we are. We're caught up. You find a man. Tell me what happens with the BYU man.
My least favorite part of the story. Okay. So no, it's fine.
You don't have anything you don't want to say.
No.
Okay.
I go to BYU, Idaho, with my one goal in mind. Even though I'm incredibly intelligent and have very good grades, I have really no aspirations to have a career of my own. I was planning to be a stay-at-home mom, and I was going to be that. I was going to fulfill all my duties as a Mormon woman. So I get to BYU the very first weekend I'm there. I get their summer term, so it was end of April. And I go to a church, campus dance, and meet my now ex-husband there at the dance. He is 23 at the time, and I am 18. He had returned from his mission,
which is
very important. So check the first box.
Yeah.
Yes. His parents were mission presidents at the time, which is a very, very big deal. It's a lot of clout in the church. It means, you're very well respected if you get asked to be a mission president. So his parents were abroad as mission presidents for 3 years when we met, when my ex and I met. So I didn't actually meet my in-laws until we'd been married for a year, which is a really weird situation. Met them in the airport. Hello, I'm your daughter-in-law. Nice to meet you.
All right. Yeah.
So we meet in April. It is just crazy. It's the love bombing, of all time. I mean, he's just infatuated with me, can't get enough of me. I'm the perfect woman, the one he's been waiting for. You name it. And I totally fell for it. I totally hook, line, and sinker bought it. And that went on for like a month, maybe a month and a half. And then his roommate came to me and said, yeah, he's been taking other girls out. So that was devastating. I was devastated. Yeah. Crying and like distraught. I almost left school. I was so upset. But I didn't. I toughed it out, and that was my best period at college was the month when we were broken up. So I dated a lot and had a lot of fun. Met my roommates, they were great. Love them. Love you girls. But so we broke up. Toward the end of the summer term, he was begging me, please, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I promise I'll never, make a mistake like that again. And I was, cautious. Like, okay, we can maybe date a little. He had to really talk me into it. He twisted my arm, but I fell for it. So, okay, let's date. So the problem is he has now graduated. He graduated in August.
Okay.
And now needs to go to BYU in Utah because it's BYU, Idaho is a 2-year college. He's just gotten his associate's degree. He needs to go get his bachelor's now. He is on a full ride scholarship to any BYU because of who his parents are and the calling they had. So he heads to Utah and is going to BYU, Utah, and I am still at BYU, Idaho. That's about a 4-hour drive. So through fall semester, we're driving back and forth when we can on the weekends to see each other, dating casually. One weekend early December, I want to say, I went down to visit. I didn't know anyone in Utah. I crashed on his couch for the night. He had an off-campus apartment, but anyone who goes to BYU knows that you have to sign an honor code when you become a student. And it is very strict. So you cannot be with someone of the opposite sex after midnight. You can't travel alone with someone of the opposite sex. You can't be in their bedroom. You can't be in their apartment after hours. So I had broken a rule.
And he had broken a rule.
He had broken a rule.
Right.
We had jointly broken a rule. Mind you, I'm still a virgin at this point. So let's see, I'm 19. And they start what is called an honor court to investigate our terrible crimes.
Right.
In breaking. So they start an investigation in Utah. They call BYU Idaho, and BYU Idaho starts an investigation on me in Idaho. And it's literally Gestapo style. They're calling in all my roommates and questioning them about me before I even know I'm in trouble.
Wow.
It was really crazy. So my roommates are coming home and like, what did you do? And I was like, I don't know. Because I didn't know what I didn't know what I'd been turned in for. I'd never gotten in trouble.
Right.
I was straight. So I was just as flabbergasted. But eventually they hold the honor court. I have to go testify. They really do think it's a court. I mean, they treat it like it's an actual court with like witnesses, and they're calling character witnesses and grilling people about my character as a Mormon girl, which is crazy. And of course, my roommates were amazing, and they all stuck up for me and said she's such a good girl. Like, I can't believe this is happening to her. And they ignored all that and expelled me anyway.
Okay.
So
Get down. what's that happened to him?
Okay. So
He also broke down.
simultaneously, he's having his court at BYU, Utah. So I'm called to attend his court. So I drive to Utah to testify on his behalf, I guess. They hold the court. They don't have to give you a decision right away. They can like marinate on it. So while they're in the marination process, the dean calls us in. Okay, I honestly can't remember if it was dean or the bishop or both. Either way, you have to have the bishop's permission to attend school. It's called a bishop. What's it called? Bishop's endorsement. So if the bishop takes it away, you're kicked out. So it's basically the same thing. And it might have been both. He might have been the bishop and the dean. It's a little fuzzy. It's been a bit.
That's okay.
But anyway, so he calls me in. Both of us sits us down. He says, "Okay, we really don't want to expel
him,
because it's gonna, his parents are way up in the church, and that would be embarrassing. Plus, they don't want to upset them, right? So let's just sweep this under the rug." So basically, they said, "Okay, we're gonna let him stay at school. We won't expel him, but you guys have to get married right now, because we don't believe you can keep dating and keep the law of chastity. We don't believe, you can keep your hands off each other, basically. You've already been caught in his apartment. Time to lock this down. You've been dating, 4 whole months?" So
they look at you and go, the only way that he stays within school is if you agree to marry him.
Yes. I'm 19. They say, "We're going to let him stay, but only if you get engaged."
Wow. Oh, okay.
So we got engaged. I think literally that Friday. Ran to a pawn shop and picked up a ring that I helped pay for. That was my ring buying experience. So,
okay. Yeah. So then they let you both back in school because of that?
No, I was still expelled.
You're still expelled,
yeah.
But it's in. That's wild.
Well, he never got kicked out. He just got to keep attending.
Crazy.
I was expelled. So I had to go home. I had to leave school, go home. He flew out shortly after, and we got married in the temple. But yeah, I was expelled, and I had to literally reapply and say, like, "I'm following the rules now. Look, I'm married. I'm safe. You can let me back in." And they did eventually.
Wow. So, Cami Elizabeth says, "What if you didn't have a car? Were they going to pay for transportation? This is why."
Expel me. They don't care.
I like it. 1981 says BYU honor code seems like Shira law light.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Crazy. So you get married.
Yeah.
Now you're married.
I'm married, and I'm 19 and married. Yes.
19 married. His life is still intact.
Yeah, nothing's changed for him other than I moved in.
Yeah. Yes, and you're trying desperately to figure out what you're going to do, right? I mean, what did it look like, if you don't mind me asking, like what happened to your marriage and the deconstruction, and how did that end?
Yeah. So let's see. Where do I start? So I had gone home to my home state. He flew out and we got married in the temple. He was going to BYU, Utah. So I literally, right after the wedding, I moved to Utah. I just flew to Utah with him and moved in.
Okay.
So I'd never met anyone, except other girls, right? And my family, which was pretty much all other girls. And so I moved states. I was married. I lost my school, and all within the space of, like a week. It was just, I didn't know anyone. I didn't know anyone in the whole state. I mean, it was quite a transition.
Yeah. Being so young in that situation.
Yeah, it was a lot as a teenager to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I imagined I was very mature at the time, so I thought I could handle it. The biggest shock was before the wedding because we were not living in the same state. Um, we only saw each other for short amounts of limited time.
Right.
I didn't know him when we got married, and he was not at all the person I thought he was. So, and that revealed itself like the first week. I mean, it was immediate. Everything changed. He had one wardrobe he wore when we were dating. The minute we were married, all those clothes went away, and this whole different wardrobe I had never seen of like filthy, suggestive t-shirts you'd buy at the back of Spencer's came out. Oh. And that was now the wardrobe. He had pretended to be this spiritual giant. He was faking it. He had no interest in being some kind of spiritual authority in our home. His only interest was to drink, screw off, and see how much he could get away with without getting caught. So it was a shock. I mean, the movies he watched changed. The music he listened to changed. It was so immediate. I just remember looking at him and being like, where did all this come from? I don't understand. Yeah. These are the clothes you wore when we were dating. And he said, well, I've got you now.
Oh, all the words that a woman wants to hear, right?
Yeah.
Or anybody,
right.
male, doesn't matter. Those are words you don't want to hear.
I had agreed to be married to him for eternity. I had made a solemn vow before God. Oh, by the way, many of my family friends could not attend my wedding. So before God, my parents, and a couple other people I knew. When you get married in the temple, my sisters weren't allowed to attend. None of my friends were allowed to attend. It was my parents and their friends and my ex's, a few members of my ex's family, which is abusive.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. Well, see, from the moment you start talking, there's abuse running rampant through this entire thing. I mean,
true. True. Point taken. Yeah, but I know of grown adults at this point who are keeping up appearances, going to church, fulfilling their callings, which is like your volunteer job, paying their tithing, following the word of wisdom, just so they can keep a hold of that recommend, because someday soon their daughter or son is going to want to get married and they want to be able to go.
Wow.
Crazy.
Okay, so obviously the man you married isn't who you thought he was, but then again, you only got the date for 4 months and you were rushed into a wedding by the church.
Yes.
So you have, was it 2 beautiful children? Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. One girl, one boy, one each.
Beautiful children. All right. So that's obviously something good that has come out of the marriage, no matter how dysfunctional it may have been.
Absolutely.
Right. So when did you decide enough was enough?
Like I said, it was such a long process. And I really had to go through a lot of self-education before I could make that split. We're so ingrained to not look at anything that would be considered anti-Mormon, which is really anything that isn't put out by the church or another faithful Mormon. So you're not allowed to do Google research. You're not allowed to, check out a book from a library on the real Mormon history. And I honestly avoided it because I think I was afraid of what I was going to find for a long time. Sure. I knew I couldn't, and I didn't for quite a while. But I did eventually find a therapist, and because I really didn't have anyone to talk to about it. I couldn't talk to my family about it. They're all active members. I had lovely friends, but they weren't Mormon. They had no clue how to help me through this. It's like speaking another language. So, they did their best, but I was like, okay, I need a professional to help me through this process of deconstructing. It's such a just blow when your entire reality crashes down around you. Your entire sense of, what is real, what is right, what is wrong, what is true. Sure. And even though I had questioned a lot of the beliefs growing up, a lot of the theology didn't make sense to me and never really stuck. Other things slip in. You know, that programming is so insidious. And so beliefs about myself were definitely ingrained from the church. I had no self-worth. I really believed I was worth nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
I believed I was disposable, because in that religion, women are disposable. They're disposable, interchangeable, replaceable. Your personal talents and wants and needs and are arbitrary. they're irrelevant. Your happiness is irrelevant. Your job is to keep your husband happy and keep your kids righteous. Anyway, so I found a therapist. Unfortunately, not the best fit. I got fired from my first therapist. That was an interesting experience. I went to a Christian therapist. I said, I'm leaving Mormonism. I really need help talking this through with somebody. My head was a mess. And, you know, I went to several sessions, but she was like suggesting I go home and read scriptures, like Bible verses, which was so triggering for me at the time, because she was a Christian therapist coming from it, you know, coming to it from a Christian perspective. And it was like exactly the opposite of what I needed. It was, I just felt very unheard, very. So sort of out of desperation, I brought in my journal with me one day and I said, could I just read you one of my journal entries? She said, sure. I read this journal entry and it's basically about how I lie in my own journal entries. I was keeping a fake diary, basically. I mean, it was true stuff that was happening, but the way I was writing it, the way I was presenting it was, God is good, my life is great, everything's a blessing, this is just a challenge. When in actuality, everything was terrible. I was in an abusive relationship with an alcoholic drug addict.
Yeah.
You know, and here I'm writing it because we were taught to keep a personal history. We have studied our pioneer ancestors' personal histories. We have been told someday our descendants are going to read our personal histories, and they have to be fake promoting. So I have to fake my own journal entries. So I brought this into the therapist and I read it to her and she just looks at me and says, I don't think I could help you. What do you mean? She said, I think yeah, that was blunt. I mean, I appreciate it because I would have wasted a lot of time. So I'm glad she was that forthright. But she said, yeah, I think you need a cult deprogramming specialist.
There you go. Okay, good recommendation there.
And I said, okay.
What's that?
Cult recovery, you know, specialists. Those don't exist. There's no such thing. It's not a thing. So I was literally back to square one. I was 36 at the time. Now, this was several years ago now. So there weren't the resources available online. There weren't the podcasts. There weren't, you know, pretty much probably the ex-Mormon Reddit was really the only thing. And then maybe Mormon Stories, the podcast was happening. But it was a very quiet space at the time. And I was just desperate. I was desperate for anything that would help me understand what I had done, why I had made the choices I had made, because they seemed so nonsensical from an outside perspective. How could someone have that much control? I would have stayed in such a terrible situation for 20 years. And I did for 20 years.
So what gave you the strength to walk away? Like, what gave you the strength to choose your own path?
My kids.
And it was unfolding.
My kids, absolutely, 100%. Because I was wavering the whole time. I didn't want to separate from my family. I knew that was going to be a big blow to them. I didn't want to cause that pain. But by the time my daughter got to the age where she was going to start going through that kind of indoctrination, literally everything within me just screamed, absolutely not. Absolutely not. She was such a beautiful, sweet soul. And I thought the last thing on earth I'm gonna do is let anyone ruin her. She's perfect the way she is. And that was that. I stopped attending and I stopped sending my kids. She was 10, I think, 11. Like I said, it was kind of a slow process. It wasn't all at once. It was kind of a slow stepping.
Sure.
My son was only 6, so he missed most of it. She remembers a lot, but she didn't retain it emotionally. So she understands it mentally, but it didn't get ingrained in her emotionally, which I'm grateful for.
That was good. That's good. So your daughter kind of like really brought it home for you.
I didn't have enough strength to stick up for myself, but I did have enough strength to stick up for her.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. Well, great on your part. That for her, for both your kids.
That's
so
you when you're a mama. That's it.
How do you go ahead and at the point you're at now, obviously you get a divorce, you leave the Mormon church, you're starting over, like from scratch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how do you stay grounded to not let those lies creep back into your life?
I think it's almost the opposite now.
Okay.
I think I'm so aware of tactics around me now. I see them not just in religion, I see them in a lot of organizations, and I think it's a lot more prevalent than people realize, honestly, that just system, it's not just in religion. It happens everywhere. And so if anything, I would say I'm more cognizant of red flags.
Well, it's funny you say that because for anybody that's watching that has not been to her page, you call out a lot of crap, which I really appreciate because, for what would be normal, you call it out. So I really appreciate that about your page.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think the Mormon LDS Latter-day Saint Church has done such a good job of sanitizing its reputation and image in the larger popular culture. I really don't think people understand what's happening. I don't think they know what's going on behind closed doors. I don't think they know what's going on in the temples because it's kept very hush-hush. But it is a really toxic system that looks very benign. And that's what I'm trying to point out, I think.
Yeah. Well, and you are. I see that on your page and your content all the time. So where do you go from here? What is your main objective, your goals?
I mean, as far as my page is concerned, and we're meeting with you and supporting people that are doing the work you're doing, which is amazing. I mean, we're all in the space together. I love that we have a community now that wasn't available when I was deconstructing. Yeah. And I was so desperate for help. And now I get to be in that position where I can pay it forward. I can be in that position where if someone really, just doesn't understand what the heck just happened to me, what is mind control? How does it happen? Until I understood it, I couldn't recover from it. And that was really important for me. I'm not sure that everyone is that way, but for me, education was vital. I had to understand the mechanism behind it and how I could be so fooled, how I could center my whole life around someone else's opinion. That was a hard thing to come to terms with. But now I just want to share that information with other people so they don't stay like I did. I mean, they have a place to go. They have a community. They have a place to go for education. They have someone to talk to. And I'm not the only one. There are a lot of people online doing it now. But I just want to add my voice and be whatever support it can be to, the people that are leaving. Because I think it is going to be a pretty, severe mass exodus. Things are changing really quickly. And I think a lot of people need help.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I relate to you so well is because I as soon as I got out, I had to educate myself. Like I had to go, how did this happen? Why did this happen? What can I do to help others not let this happen? And you're right, because when you and I deconstructed, I mean, I didn't have that kind of community. I just kind of went on my own through it.
Yeah.
And because not much was there, period. And so now seeing the community that's online, it's incredibly refreshing. I love Instagram because I'm hearing and seeing all this wisdom come through content on page after page after page, and it's absolutely wonderful. People on here that are watching that I really appreciate. Somebody like Say What I Wanna. The content that she puts out is on the money, and so I really I love your story. So let me ask you one final question. And we didn't talk about this question. So, but say someone is trying to break free from or coming out of this toxic religion, right? What advice would you give them? What steps should they take, in your opinion?
I mean, I think first of all, get the right help. That's the most important thing. If you can find a therapist, please make sure that you find a therapist that specializes in high demand groups and deconstruction, because it is a very specialized niche, and without meaning to, therapists can sometimes do more harm than good if you get the wrong one. And they're sometimes hard to find, so you might have to look around a bit, but find someone who has some background in this. I feel like that's really important. Otherwise, you spend half your time explaining to them what it was you went through, and they don't get it. And then, find a community. If that's online, if that's in person. I attend an ex-Mormon group here in Arizona where I am. We meet once a month on Sundays and just have coffee and donuts. And, it's kind of that way to recreate the community we lost when we left the church. So I think just, people want to help. I am a certified trauma specialist. Thank you. Yes, just saw that pop up. Yeah, I just finished my certification over the summer. So yeah, just, find someone to talk to. And I think that's the biggest thing. Having, yeah.
No, I completely agree. You don't go alone in it. Yeah. And you're right, a good therapist is worth their weight in gold. Because, I've been to some before that have been like, no, I'm moving on. I've wasted my time here, and so remember that when you seek a therapist, for everybody that's listening to, you have the right to say no. You have the right to change your mind. You have the right to say, I don't need to go see this person anymore, and to find somebody different. I think that's vital. And find somebody that's not and I know this is difficult, but for me, I like to find people that don't have religious pre-understandings. Or when I go to a religious therapist.
For me, it didn't work. It didn't work for me. It might for someone else. But I really had to find a secular therapist that didn't incorporate any kind of religion into our therapy in order to heal. And I did have to shop around a little bit. And I think that it is important to remember that, you're the consumer.
Yeah.
You're with a therapist and you don't feel like you're, getting what you need. Find a new one, you're hiring them. So because the right person will help you tremendously. So keep looking until you find that person. It took me a little bit.
Yeah.
But I found the right person, and I worked with him for a long time, several years.
I'm still working with mine. I found one I really liked, and every 2 weeks I have a checkup.
Yeah.
Healing checkup. Great question. I believe it's Caden now 82. How to determine if you need a therapist or a coach? And I would say this is obviously coaches are not therapists.
Right.
Therapists deal specifically with trauma and issues that a coach is not certified or qualified to deal with.
Absolutely.
It's important that, first and foremost, I would think it's important that you go to a therapist to heal.
Yes.
Go to a coach, and because I am a coach, you go to a coach to, number one, somebody to walk with you.
Yes.
Through the process.
Hold your hand.
That helps hold you accountable and helps you with goals that you didn't know you could achieve. Accomplish things. So they work hand in hand, but never confuse the difference between a therapist and a coach.
Yeah.
They both have a purpose.
Absolutely. I needed the therapist to help me. I would say, how do you know if you need a therapist? I had a lot of symptoms. I was very traumatized. I had CPSD, I had nightmares, I had night terrors, I had a lot of anxiety. I did not escape unscathed. I struggled with all that for years. And so I think if you are experiencing side effects in your regular everyday life, where this, is becoming an issue or a problem, see a therapist. Yeah. Because you probably have some trauma you need to deal with. And I did a lot. I did, a lot of different techniques with my therapist to kind of like release that physical trauma, EMDR and a lot of other things. I also saw a psychiatrist. You can get medication management. So there are a lot of options, but obviously the more help you can get, the better.
Yeah, I would say this, that when people come to me and they want, they say, hey, will you take me on as a client? If I even get a whiff that they have those kind of symptoms or anything like that, I have a list of therapists that I recommend too. Now, the beautiful thing is, while a therapist is working on that, it's nice to have a life coach, I believe, obviously, because I am one, that is with you in between those sessions.
Yes.
To kind of hold you accountable, let you know you're not alone.
Yes.
Not there to necessarily tell you anything new that the therapist has told you, because they're just there to reinforce with the therapist. That's why I work with them.
Yes.
Also to help you achieve goals and encourage you to become a person that you always wanted to be instead of what you were told to be.
Absolutely. And I think that's what the life coach helped me do. Like I said, even though I had sort of mentally detached from the religion, I had a lot of residual trauma about the way I looked at myself. And so having a coach kind of walk with me and say, like, you are worthy, you are worth it, let's set some goals. What can you do? It was so empowering. And the funny thing is, I was doing it already. I was already accomplishing goals. I was already doing a lot with my life, but I had no confidence in myself that I could do it on my own. I had no confidence I could do it outside of my marriage. I had no, and so sitting down with a life coach, setting goals, being accountable to someone for those goals, and really working through things like the concrete things in life. Like, am I happy in my career? Am I happy, the day things that you have power over that you can change if you're not happy. And I did. I changed a lot. I moved, I sold my house, I changed states, I left my religion, I found a new community, and it's
and
great.
You're raising 2 kids.
I'm raising 2 kids. Life is good. Life is so good. Life is so good.
Well, let me for time purposes, because we're running over a little bit of an hour now, even though it doesn't feel like it. I want to first of all say thank you, Terah. You are a shining example that people can overcome some terribly severe obstacles placed in their way or impressed upon them. And so I am thankful for you. I'm thankful for your voice. I love your content. And anybody that's not following her, it's Recover from Religion. Go to her page and follow her page. It is healing, I think, as well. And so I know when I hear stories like this, a part of me heals. And so I love these stories. I'm sad that you've been through what you've been through, but excited to see such resilience and strength within you to come out better on the other side. And I think your kids are seeing that, and I know that they are going to learn and be stronger for it because of your example. It's exciting to get to know you better as well. So I really appreciate your honesty and your openness and being willing to share everything you just shared.
Absolutely, this was a pleasure. I mean, like I said, we're all in this, this online space together, trying to support each other as a community. And your work is so important. It's so vital. It's so needed, and it is hard to talk about. And it took me a long time, years to get to the point where I felt strong enough to sort of share my story. So if you're not at that point yet, that's okay. That's what we share our stories and help you as you're on your own journey in your own time.
It takes time, and there's no need to rush. As well, everybody's deconstruction story or story of breaking free is unique.
Absolutely.
There's no that model to it. So thank you, Terah.
Thank you
For all those who have have joined, and then all those that are going to watch later. We appreciate you watching this, and I will have this on my page. I'm still trying to figure out how to let it share multiple places, so if anybody can figure that out, no one's been able to tell me that. Yeah, but I'll have it on my page for later, so you can go back and listen or recommend it to other people. But Terah, it's awesome. I hope we can do another one again soon.
I would love that. I would love that. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone that watched, and have a lovely evening.
You guys have a great night.
Bye.
Talk. Bye-bye.